What's up everyone, J-Dub here. Today I want to talk about hooking up an amp head to a speaker cabinet. You might be thinking, dude, it's an amp, just plug it in. I thought it would be that simple too until I looked at the back of my speaker cabinet. What I have here is a 1960A Marshall Lead 4x12 that a good friend of mine graciously gave me years ago, and I've never used it until now. When I first looked at the back of this, I had questions. This cabinet has the mono stereo selector switch in the back along with a few input and ohm options. So I went to YouTube to see if anyone had a video on this type of cabinet. I couldn't find any videos with a good explanation on the mono stereo switch, but I did learn about speaker wiring and ohms. Not exactly what I was looking for, but I learned a lot from those videos as well. If you're not familiar with ohms, do your research. Phillip McKnight from Know Your Gear had a great video called A Guitar Player's Fast Guide to Ohms, where he broke it down in a very simple format. If you have a cabinet like this and you're looking for more info, the Marshall website has a link to the user's manual and you can also download it. So I figured this would be a great video for anyone not that familiar with speaker cabinets and some of the issues and questions they might have. Understand, this Marshall cabinet was designed to have multiple options for hooking up amps, and we will discuss those options. Understanding the mono stereo switch. First of all, to make this less confusing, look at it like this. The ohms at the top of the inputs are for mono, and the ohms at the bottom of the inputs refer to when it's switched to stereo. This is how it works. In mono, you have two input options that will put out sound to all four speakers in your cabinet. 4 ohms, which is your left input jack, and 16 ohms, which is your right input. Most power amps run mono, which means you will run a single speaker cable to your cabinet. If you have a 4 ohm head, you would plug into the 4 ohm input. If you have an 8 ohm or 16 ohm head, you will plug into the right input. I will clarify why you can plug 8 ohms into the 16 ohm in a moment. In the stereo position, you have two options at 8 ohms each. You will notice the left input says 8 ohms right. This means if you plug into this and go to the front of the cabinet, the right side top and bottom speakers will be putting out sound. If you plug into the right input that says 8 ohms left and go to the front of the cabinet, it will be the left top and bottom speakers that will be putting out sound. What ohm output is my amp? Look on the back of your amp or reference the user manual. It should say on the back, but if you don't know, then do some research. You want to match your ohms. However, you have options. Example, I have an 8 ohm head, so I have a couple options with this cabinet. The matched speaker impedance is 8 ohms. Of course, 16 ohms works too, but the amp achieves maximum power output only when speaker impedance is 8 ohms. While with 16 ohms the amp's power reduces, that's right out of the user manual, guys. So I can plug into the right 16 ohm input in the mono position and run all 4 speakers, but my amp's power reduces because it has resistance. Resistance is okay. It won't be as loud and it may sound a little darker, but it will not damage the amp. I could also run the stereo position and plug into either of the jacks because they are both 8 ohm. So I can run my amp at full power, but only out of either the left speakers or the right speakers. Remember this with ohms. You can go up a step but not down. In other words, if I was in the mono position and plugged into the left 4 ohm input, there wouldn't be enough resistance against the amp and I could burn up my amp. Last but not least, speaker cable. Do your research. Do not use instrument cables to hook an amp to a cabinet. There is a difference. Speaker cables and instrument cables look a lot alike, but speaker cables have thicker wires in them. Look at the cable. It may say speaker cable on it. Again, if you're in doubt, just buy a speaker cable from your local music store. They're not that expensive. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching.